Today, we'll take you on a journey through the exciting world of temperature sensor technology, specifically RTDs, thermocouples, and thermistors. These might sound like big words, but don't worry, we'll break them down for you in a fun and easy way. First up, let's talk about RTDs, or resistance temperature detectors. Basically, an RTD is a little device that measures temperature by looking at how much electricity can flow through a wire. Here's how it works. Imagine a wire made of platinum, which is a special kind of metal. As the wire heats up, the metal atoms start to vibrate more and get in the way of the flow of electricity. This means that the wire's resistance to electricity goes up. An RTD takes advantage of this fact by measuring the wire's resistance to electricity and using that to figure out the temperature. It's kind of like how you can tell how hot something is by touching it. If it's really hot, it's harder to touch for a long time. In the same way, the more resistance there is in the wire, the hotter it must be. RTDs are super accurate too. They can measure temperature with an accuracy of 0.1% or better. That's like trying to shoot a basketball into a hoop from really far away and getting it in almost every time. One typical industrial application of RTDs is to measure temperature in food processing plants. In these plants, an RTD may be hooked up to a thermometer located inside a cooking vat. As the temperature of the food changes, the RTD senses the change in resistance and sends a signal to the thermometer, which can then display the temperature on a screen for the workers to see. That way, they can make sure that the food is cooked safely and to the right temperature. Isn't that cool? RTDs might not be the most exciting thing to talk about, but they're pretty amazing little devices that help make our lives better in all sorts of ways. Moving on to thermocouples. They're pretty cool because they work based on something called the Seebeck effect. Don't worry, it's not a superhero power or anything. It's just a scientific phenomenon that happens when two different metals are joined together to create a circuit. Imagine you have a piece of copper wire and a piece of iron wire, and you stick them together. When you heat up one end of the wires, a little bit of electricity is created. This happens because the difference in temperature between the hot end and the cold end creates a flow of electricity, kind of like water flowing through a river. This flow of electricity is called an electromotive force, or EMF for short. And the cool thing about thermocouples is that they measure this EMF and use it to figure out the temperature difference between the hot and cold ends of the wires. Thermocouples come in all different shapes and sizes, and each type is made with different combinations of metals. For example, one common type is called Type K, and it's made with a wire of nickel and chromium. Another type is called Type J, and it's made with a wire of iron and constantan, which is an alloy of copper and nickel. Thermocouples are really useful because they can measure temperature over a really wide range, from really cold temperatures like -200 degrees Celsius all the way up to super hot temperatures like 2000 degrees Celsius. Now, let's talk about how thermocouples can be used in factories. Imagine you're working in a factory where they make things like ceramics, bricks, or glass. Those things need to be heated up to extremely high temperatures. But how can we measure the temperature to make sure it's not too hot or cold? Well, this is where thermocouples can help. As mentioned, thermocouples can measure very high temperatures, up to 2000 degrees Celsius. That's even hotter than the hottest day in Death Valley. By using a thermocouple to monitor the temperature inside a furnace or kiln, the workers can make sure that the temperature stays within a certain range. That's really important to make sure that the product is safe and high quality. And it's not just factories that use thermocouples. Boilers also need to be monitored to make sure they don't get too hot and cause damage. By using a thermocouple to measure the temperature, workers can control the efficiency of the boiler and make sure it's working the way it should. Thermocouples are also used in science labs to measure the temperature of things like chemicals or materials, This can help scientists understand how things behave under different temperatures, and can even help them develop new materials or medicines. So you see, thermocouples are pretty amazing. They might seem a little complicated, but they're really just a bunch of wires that create electricity when they're heated up, and that electricity can be used to measure all kinds of different temperatures. Finally, let's discuss thermistors. These are sensors that can measure temperature based on how their resistance changes when the temperature changes. Think of it like a game, where the rules change depending on the temperature. The higher the temperature, the harder the game becomes. There are two main types of thermistors, NTC and PTC. NTC stands for negative temperature coefficient, which means that as the temperature goes up, the resistance of the thermistor goes down. PTC, on the other hand, stands for positive temperature coefficient. So as the temperature goes up, the resistance of the thermistor goes up too. It's like they're playing different games altogether. Now, let's talk about how thermistors are used in industrial applications. One common use of thermistors is in HVAC systems, which stands for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Imagine you're sitting in a classroom, and it's a really hot day. The air conditioner is running, but it doesn't seem to be doing a very good job of cooling the room down. That's where a thermistor can come in handy. Inside the air conditioning system, there's a little thermistor that measures the temperature of the air that's coming out of the vents. If the temperature is too warm, the thermistor sends a signal to the air conditioner to tell it to kick into high gear and start cooling the air down more quickly. This is just one example of how thermistors are used in industrial applications. They're also used in medical thermometers to measure body temperature, and in automotive engines to monitor the temperature of the engine and make sure it doesn't overheat. To sum it all up, temperature sensor technology might seem complicated, but it's actually pretty cool. Today, we learned about three types of sensors: RTDs, thermocouples, and thermistors. RTDs use platinum wire to measure temperature, making them perfect for industries like food processing, where temperature is crucial for making delicious French fries. Thermocouples work by creating electricity when two different metals are heated up, and can measure temperatures from really cold to super hot, making them perfect for industries like ceramics or foundries. Finally, thermistors measure temperature based on how their resistance changes, and come in two types, NTC and PTC. These sensors can be used in all kinds of industries, and even in science labs to develop new materials and medicines. So the next time you enjoy your favorite food, remember that temperature sensor technology played a role in making it taste delicious. If you're looking for a hands-on approach to understanding temperature sensors, RealPars has just the solution. Get started with their free course on RTDs. All it takes is one click. Find the link in the video description and start your journey today.